Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Authors Box. Today, I am joined by Julie. Julie wrote The Lone Wolf, book one of the Montreal Mavericks, and I believe there's a book two out. I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure it's just as good as the first one. Julie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie. I'm a Montreal based author and I write hockey romance. My first book, The Lone Wolf, came out 2 years ago. These Broken Ice came out last fall, and I'm currently working on book three. So that's pretty much it.
Oh, it's gonna be a trilogy. I did not know that. Now I'm looking forward to reading the next two books. Uh, Now this is a fantasy podcast. Your book is not fantasy. It is as you just said, it is sports romance, sports fiction. I am going to ask you the same question I ask everybody, though. Nobody gets away without answering this question. What is your favorite magic system? Now I know you asked me the other day what a magic system was, but just to reiterate, it's how fantasy superhero stuff like that, how they use their like mystical powers, magical powers, all that nonsense. It can be from anything, or you don't have to have one. That's also a valid answer.
So I don't think I really have one per se, but I guess I was into vampires for a while. So I was Team Edward. I don't know if that
Hmm.
would count as one, but yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, that counts. Yeah, Edward's a vampire. Vampires are magical to some degree. I will absolutely count that. Uh, let's take a little bit of a deep dive into you now before we get into the book. You said Lone Wolf was your first one. You're working on two more, but how long have you been writing?
Yeah, I guess I've been writing for a lot longer than I thought. So I mean, more intensely like since COVID, because that's all we had time to do anyway. So, but if I really think back, I've been writing for a while. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to watch this cartoon, which was like the Three Musketeers, but with dogs. And I don't know if you've seen that TV show, but I was like glued to the screen when that the
Hmm.
show came on, and I was totally in love with the Aramis. And I did write like a cartoon, like a comic book style kind of story. So obviously it was romance. I think I can say I've been a romantic, from birth.
Hmm.
So, and like some poetry through my teenage years, and I'm probably not that super like proud to say it, but I wrote fan fiction with my best friend about Guns N' Roses when I was like 15, 16 years old. I was like a huge Duff McKagan fan. So I
Mhm.
obviously, I'm sure if anybody like finds it, maybe please burn it. So, and I guess I took a break for a long time, and yeah, during COVID, I mean, I guess it was a newfound passion for me. I would do it like 24/7 if I could.
Fair enough. That kind of answered my next question, which was there a specific moment? But can you pinpoint like there's a definitive time in your life where you're like, okay, I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah, and I'll probably yeah, I guess I'll probably be answering some of your questions too at the same point. But there was this TV show that came out just before COVID called Sanditon. I'm a big like Jane Austen fan, and
Mhm.
Sanditon was like written based on her last unfinished work, which was called, I think, The Brothers. And they were supposed to give us like a second season, but the distributor pulled the plug on the show after the first season, and they left us on this huge like cliffhanger. So, and then COVID happened, and all we had time to do was fight to get our show back on the air. And so, but a lot of that. So I joined like Facebook groups, and they like some of them like start writing their own like how they would finish the story if the producers were going to take their work, right? So I started pitching in there, so I had my own version of how I would end the TV show. And then things started going like really into like alternate universe, like in modern times. That show took place in 1820 in England, so like we were starting to like bring stories like in our time. And some of them wrote stories about the main character being a football player. So I was like, hey, so like hockey, I'm a huge hockey fan, so I was like, okay, so if he can be a football player, he can also be a hockey player. So I was like, why not make him like the best hockey player ever in the best hockey town ever, which is Montreal. I'm biased, but I'll say
Hmm.
it.
Fair.
So that's how it started. So I wrote my whole fan fiction story, and when that was over, my husband was like, hey, like you love it so much, why don't you just like publish the book, So I was like, so it kind of like planted a seed. And so I decided to just pull the story, because in fan fiction you can use names, like real names from TV shows, characters, because it's free work. But if you're going to publish, obviously you can't use any. And it's for copyrights reasons, obviously. So I just pulled the story away, and I just changed the names, and just put some more meat around the bone of the fan fiction that I had written.
Hmm. Well, the story that you came up with, and the story that we're here to talk about today, the Montreal Mavericks, uh, it's a series, and it's a very interesting look because it's in the dynamic of player lives, and it focuses primarily on Finley Carter and Emma Blackwell, the two main characters. However, um, it approaches it in such a way that kind of humanizes a lot of aspects of these like super mega stars that we see.
Hmm.
And you just mentioned there that the show was a little bit of an inspiration, the fan fiction that came out of it. Would you say that that was what inspired the Lone Wolf, or did you take a completely different route and just sort of the idea came from it to have them as hockey players, but then you just took it in a completely different route and changed a lot of what you were writing in the first place?
So the storyline is pretty much the same as the fan fiction was. So I
Mhm.
just I mean, I wasn't very experienced in being like a professional writer. So I had to put a bit more like character development, and but the storyline's pretty much the same. So it's yeah, just more detailed, if I could say.
Mhm. I so what's interesting to me in that aspect though is the inclusion of the Mavericks. I don't know why I stumbled over that word. It's themselves. Uh, you still have them as an NHL team.
Hmm.
They're classified as they should be because the Canadians are definitely one of the best teams out there, as the best team in the league. And you have like the Calgary Stampeders, I believe, which, if I'm being completely honest, for a moment, I was like, well, why didn't she change that name? And then I was like, no, it's the Calgary Flames. That doesn't make any sense. So was the name change like strictly a legal decision, and why didn't you change it to like say a fictional organization or like a triple A team? And how did you land on the name Mavericks? Like, where did the Stampeders one is a little bit obvious because the Calgary Stampede, but the Montreal, I'm not from Montreal and I've never actually had a chance to visit. Is the Mavericks, where did that name come from?
So yeah, I like the name Maverick. There's something about, I don't know if it's Tom Cruise from Top Gun, or
Hmm.
and I like the definition of a maverick, which is somebody that takes risks, that sometimes will, like go out, like walk outside the line, and so I kind of like that kind of character, and that's a little bit what Finley is. He's a brooding. I love brooding men in books, like a uh, Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, or Anthony Bridgerton from the TV series. I love dark men like that. Like they have character, they're moody, and like I just love, I mean, like, I'm a total sucker for that. But and so this is what Finley is, because the character from the show Sanditon was also a little bit like that, so he's almost also very much inspired from the character from the TV show. I kept that in. So but he's also a guy that does his own thing. He's very loyal to his team and the people that he loves, but at the same time he marches to his own drums. So Maverick really works well here. And Lone Wolf is sort of like a synonym also of Maverick. And also, I was looking for a team like nickname that would sort of like sound like Go Habs Go, which is our chant for the
Mm,
Montreal Canadiens. So Go Mavs Go also works well. So I thought it was a nice way to kind of like just like weave it in, so it
mhm.
all worked together. But yeah, I just love the word Maverick for some reason.
That's totally understand. It's a cool word. I like Maverick myself. In fact, I think I'd probably be a bigger fan of some of the teams if they had names like Maverick. Um, I do want to talk about that for a second though, because the team dynamic is definitely like I don't want to say the heart of the novel, because the heart of the novel is truly the story between Finn and Emma. But a very close second, I would say, is the relationship that's shared between Mac, Pete, and Finn.
Yeah.
Um, when you're writing something like that, would you say it's a challenging to create a relationship that feels, authentic and realistic, but also true to form to what hockey players are actually like?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, to put yourself in like the mind of the opposite sex, right? I mean, for it's probably the same for you, like putting yourself in how the way like we're wired and how we think, feel, we're very different, men and women, So I try to be as truthful as I could, to make sure that I'm not overdoing it or underdoing it, So trying like as much as I could to do it that way. But there are movies and like TV shows. I don't know if you're familiar with Shorzy. So it's
Yep.
so, I love that show. I love Jerry Kiesel. He's amazing. I think he's
Mhm.
the king of chirps, and he really did a really good job with the show. So you can see, I mean, the dynamic is very different from like Shorzy, but I wanted to have that camaraderie that they have in that team, the Blueberry Bulldogs. So I wanted to have
Mhm.
something like that too. But also, I think it's in a romance, it's important that you cannot just put the focus on the couple. There has to be friends around them that help them grow, that bring development to the character, the story. So and these three together, they're so different, the three of them, but they somehow complete each other so well too.
I and I would agree with that statement. I think the three of them together create this great bond. Mac maybe on the end of it, but uh and it's nice to see as and I think I mentioned this when we first spoke is that I was a high school hockey coach.
Yeah.
However, the flip side of that coin is I know nothing about hockey. I really just signed up to help out a friend of mine. But it's interesting to see the dynamics I saw in that locker room comparable to the locker room in this story, to the kind of lens, to the credence and the tradition of your writing of hockey players. So I think it's an excellent job. I think you've absolutely
Thank you.
captured
Good.
them. So my next question I hadn't fully figured, I haven't fully figured out because there's a few ways I want to approach this, and that's the character of Emma. And now Emma being the female main character is also the Mavericks newest social media team member. um Finn and her are the core storyline, but the antagonist is definitely her ex,
Yes.
Jason Reed, who is also a prolific scout for the team.
Good.
um so to escape him, she goes to Boston,
Hmm.
gets an MBA, comes back, and within the first week of this new job, sees him, realizes they work together, and uh, you know, I don't know how to phrase this correctly, but like, why didn't when writing it, I feel like the most in my mind in a situation like that, the most obvious solution is like, well, I quit. I'm done this job. I'll definitely go
Right.
somewhere else. It was nice meeting you all for the first 5 days. Later, I'm done. So
But you
I
don't
I just
consider
yeah,
it.
yeah. I guess my question, and I mean, of course the story has to go on, but my question is, you know, why as the story progresses, we understand that the hold he has on her is very, very complete. Whether she
Yeah.
likes it or not, it is a noticeable aspect. But when writing, when writing a character like Emma, when creating this character who's obviously hurt, who's obviously, not I don't want to say damaged because damage isn't the correct, but and broken isn't either, but hurt for sure. When you're writing, how hard is it to be able to capture that feel, like how much research did you have to put in to capture the feelings of women who were abused in such a manner and how they would react in these situations? Because I imagine this happens quite a bit, especially in the sports world where women see this and just don't quit their job because they're in a position. So how much research did you have to put into that when you were writing this character?
I didn't put that much, but I do have some people around me who have seen things or like lived things. And so I did try to draw an inspiration from that. Fortunately, myself, I haven't had any like that kind of abuse in my life, but So I think I drew some inspiration from that, but at the same time I wanted to have a female character that can stand up, that is strong, that is empowered by themselves. They feel that they grew. She spent 3 years in Boston. She matured. She had time to get some introspection, like perspective. And I think for her, I wanted to have, like a character that can stand on her own, but at the same time that can still feel. I mean, these scars are still there. They're still somewhat fresh. So, and Jason's super manipulative, and he knows how to like get her, just like her, like his pet name for her is enough to like induce, like situation where she doesn't know what to do. She freezes. So I guess that's how I wanted to play it. So, and I mean, I did have relationships that were not easy, but I wouldn't say abused. So just
Mhm.
maybe I drew a little bit of me in there, and like I've heard women talk, and like testimonies, and so I kind of like try to draw a little bit out of all this.
Mhm. In that same vein, in the same vein of discovery, in that sense, the core conflict in the story is obviously between her and Jason, and Finley and Jason, and really everybody and Jason, because he sucks so much. But the secondary, and I would say the deeper theme there is the systemic, gender bias in sports teams. And
Yeah.
a very close second to the worst guy in this book is Lonnie, who spends a great
Yeah.
deal of time being the world's worst female ally. But when developing this narrative, did you and you said you have people around you, did you look into any cases of like sexual or gender harassment within sports organizations? And I'm sure it's prevalent, especially in, I mean, we have one of the most storied sports leagues in the world here in Canada with the NHL.
Yes.
I'm sure it's very prevalent in some
Oh yeah,
cases.
we saw it recently, right? With the trial for the five junior hockey, like the Team Canada
Mm,
players, that were acquitted. I mean, that's really shady. I mean, what happened, what didn't happen. So, but still, I mean, it drew a lot of ink, and you wonder, in a situation like that, how do we see like a career of a sports player? Like, I mean, we've seen stories in the past as well, like football in the States, where there were like situations with sexual assault, and the guy would always like get out of it like unscathed. So where like
mhm,
women are stuck with this stigma for the rest of their lives, the trauma, and it takes a long time. I assume to like be able to function beyond that. So yeah, there is, and there is a lot of like ink that was written about, like the discrepancies between women and men, and the stereotypes, that are like associated with sports. So yeah, but
mhm,
I didn't put that much. Yeah, it's more about what I've read, and like all the stories that have come. I'm also very close to the editor of my book. She's a very close friend of mine, and I think we put our brains together, and and decided, like,
mhm.
saw how can we move this. How we can we like put that in. So Jason and Lonnie, I mean, we tried to find the sleaziest name we could. So I'm sorry for all the
Yeah.
Lonnies of the world, and if there's any Lonnie watching this podcast, but we tried to, yeah, really portrait, like portray a man, like in his 60s, like come from a different era. He's
Mhm,
probably, like, from like a time where you could get away with like all sorts of like questionable jokes, and
mhm,
remarks. And so for him, he has a hard time navigating this new world where it's a bit more sensitive. You can't say everything you want, and without repercussion. So it's really trying to put together not caricatures, but like try to impersonate somebody, like that would like bring these feelings up.
mhm. I think you've done an excellent job of that because, as I'm about to point out, uh, Jason Reed is the only character I've read in a very long time where I'm physically angry listening to him
That's
speak.
a
I'm like, you are
compliment.
the worst. I will say this though. I will say there's this great moment, and I think it's very close to the end of the book. It's within the last 100 pages, I want to say. And Scott, the team coach, sorry, Scotty,
Yes.
um, goes to talk to the owner, and the owner passes him off on Lonnie, and then Lonnie and him are arguing about this, and Scott asks, "Would you let your daughters date Jason Reed?" And even then, Lonnie's like, "I would. They would never be in a position to be around Jason Reed." She's like, "Oh, so you're an actual piece of shit. That's good to know. This is good." But when writing a character like Jason Reed, I have to imagine when you craft something like that and you put those words on the page, there's got to be a psychological sort of toll that it takes on a writer. And is there something that you like putting yourself into that headspace? Would you say that you suffered a little bit of that, where it's like, now I feel like I got to shower all this Jason Reed off
Yeah,
me?
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. But there's more fun about writing characters like that. And I'm pretty sure actors would say the same about characters they play in movies, right? I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sure like we're all inherently like good people, but to kind of like tap into this like darker side and say it's I'm not like that, but just explore, like the possibilities and like see what how much can I put in there until I reach a limit. But it was fun to write, I mean, write villains but at the same time it's touchy because it's like, okay, so how it can be a rabbit hole, right? If you do too much
Mhm.
research on the kind he's a sociopath, and narcissistic, and so it's probably easy to fall into a rabbit hole of like doing research about these kind of characters. I mean, I did look like online, like try to search on how they think, how they see themselves, and so but yeah, I try to like stay behind the line that would make me fall over. But yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I mean, you want to like just shower the grime off, after writing a guy like
Yeah.
that. So, and it doesn't get it any better in book two. So,
That's reassuring. I think one of the aspects I really enjoyed about this book too is that, and now that you have talked about the influence, I can kind of see it when I look back in that the different perspectives of characters, and it's not limited to say like Emma and Finn, like some books would be, but you have people like Lizzie, Jason, Scott, Isabel, um, uh, Ken's. I don't think Mac gets one. I can't remember, but
a small
um,
one, yeah.
a small one. I think the included aspect of these perspectives is great, and they all have a little bit of something else. Like I think one of my favorite lines actually comes from Scott's again, where he just like very casually works into his thought process about his wife who passed away like three
Mhm.
years prior. I was like, that is such an interesting thing to include in such a small portion.
Yeah.
My question is not really a question. Was there one that was harder to write than the other? Because you do have to frame it a little bit in their perspective and their personality. Was one harder to write than the other, so to speak, or one harder to write than all of them?
A little bit because I mean, I know Finley so well, right? And Emma. I mean, the first two books with Broken, like Lone Wolf and Broken Ice, are both their stories. Just that there was so much material, I couldn't put it in just one book. So Broken Ice is also, it's kind of like the continuity of their book, and the third one is about Mac. So, and I'm not saying who who the
Mhm.
female character is for Mac. I want people to just like when they open the book, go, oh, or like, oh. So, I want to surprise as much as I can, but
Mhm.
but I didn't know the other characters as well. So trying to be in their heads without being too Finley or too Emma, that's where it was like really like treading the line. You're like, okay, so how do I do this? So I had an idea of how Mac was, but I really got to know him while writing book three. So yeah, there's a little bit of a challenge there because you don't want Finley 2.0 in another character because then it dilutes the effect, So
Mhm.
and Pete Kensington, the captain, he's a golden retriever kind of character, like he just
Yeah.
loves his girlfriend so much, and he's also a very patient guy, very diplomatic. And so which is why he's a captain, because he's the one who can say, okay, he doesn't have the same fiery temper that Finley has, or the maybe a bit more laid back or reserved that Mac has,
Mhm.
so it's but Mac is very complicated. He has his own story, and but just putting myself into their head, was a little bit challenging for sure.
I, I still think it was beautifully done. Like I said, I liked all of them except Jason. I didn't like him.
You love to hate them.
Probably. I don't even know if it was like I think there was a moment where I was reading it and I was actually pacing in my kitchen. I'm like, this is nuts what this guy's doing. I think it's the part where he's like punching a punching bag and he's doing super creepy stuff. But I have two more questions for you here, and they're not about the book specifically. They're more about opinion things. And as someone who's a fellow Canadian, North America as a whole, we're suffering from what I would classify as a literary crisis.
Okay.
And we are a literacy crisis, not a literary crisis, literacy crisis, down across the board. Everything, we are reading, math, writing, all of it. If you had to stand in front of a high school class and one of the students posed this question to you, and they said, give us one good reason why we should spend more time reading and writing, what would you say?
Well, I would actually give them two. The first one is that reading exposes you to like new words. There's also like a muscle memory in reading, so we read faster. We also like I said, like learn new words, but it's just it's muscle memory. It's the structure of phrases. I mean, we see it like in comments on social media, like people have a hard time writing full sentences, or like you can see where it's lacking. But like reading often helps you to like really like kind of like register how like phrases are like composed and structured, so that's one for sure. The other one is just the evasion, right? Like going into other worlds, like but finding a genre that really sticks with you, that's a little challenging. So that's why maybe reading different genres, it's really good. And then suddenly you find one that you really like, and then it's exploring these worlds, and and yeah, you're being transported, like you get invested in the story, so you can see yourself in like the locations and the worlds, so if dragons is your thing, it's fun to be in a new world that you don't know as well, or you can imagine yourself in, I mean, your vision is probably different than the authors, but you're creating, you're allowing your imagination to create.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the two reasons I would give.
I think those are great reasons, in my opinion. And as someone who works with high school students, I know for a fact that they would actually respond, I think, a little bit to those, which is good. My final structured question for you here is on your own experience. And if someone's listening to this and they want to be an author, they want to do what you do, would you have any advice for those people?
Yes, the first one, if you feel you need to write, it doesn't have to make sense, just write. I mean, it's sometimes I'm found like in front of a blank page, I don't know what to do with it. I just start typing. I might not even keep any of what I wrote, but I just write, because it's kind of getting the wheel spinning, so that's one thing, is just write. And don't be discouraged, like in front of a blank page. I mean, go back, write something else, but just write. That's the first thing I would say. And I think for the rest, I think we live in a great time, like 20 years ago, even, or 30 years ago, I'm self-published. So I published my books on Amazon. That was not even a possibility, or it was just the beginning of a possibility. So we had to go through a big publishing house, and it was, I mean, the odds of your book being picked up, was pretty small. So there was a very like they're very niche, I find, onto where they like with the books that they choose. So having the opportunity to publish manuscripts nowadays, I mean, it doesn't have to cost that much money either. So I find that there's this advantage, and we get to choose the royalties we want. There's a lot of liberty, I find, with the self-publishing. I mean, if you want to go the publishing house route, yeah, why not? Like the traditional way, yeah, absolutely. But I find that there is a great opportunity with self-publishing, which is what I do. But there are challenges, that's for sure. Like, so you have to choose your cover, you have to do the formatting yourself. There's tools there, it's like Amazon. Amazon's great for that. So like they have all the formatting, lot of software that you can buy, and so there's the formatting, but you have to do all the promotion for yourself. So create yourself like an Instagram page, a TikTok page. I never thought I would ever own a TikTok account, but I guess that's where all my readers are. So so like open accounts for your author page, and if you can have like a website page as well. But it's just that be ready to do promotion for your book for sure. But find book talkers, bookstagrammers. So
Bookstagram, yeah.
like, yeah, bookstagram. So like you have to put yourself out there for sure. It's not that easy though, I have to admit.
That is something I would say has been echoed, is that it's not
Yeah.
easy, but it's worth it,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
the part.
absolutely, yeah.
So, okay, those are all my structured questions. And now I have for you our little thing we do at the end here, which is our 10 rapid fire questions. It's just going to be either or. You don't have to give me a reason. You just have to say the word. First off, we're going to start off with, are you ready?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. Pen and paper or computers to write?
Computer.
Computer. Google
Yeah.
Word, Google Docs or Microsoft Word?
Google Docs.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Card games or board games?
Card games.
Movies or TV?
Oh gosh. Movie.
Long novels or short novels?
Uh, it depends. Oh man, I've read so many like really good long ones, like the Count of Monte Cristo, but short ones can be good as well, right? Like a little short, little fun thing. You don't need your brain to engage your brain in.
Both is also an acceptable answer. I will take both. Beach day or camping trip?
Beach for sure. I mean,
Beach.
nothing like the sea. Oh yeah, the waves. Yeah, nothing like that.
Yeah. Major league or minor league teams?
Major league.
Major league.
Okay, they're both fun, but yeah, major for sure. Yeah.
Major for sure. Fair enough. Edit as you go or edit once you're done?
Both. I think there has to be some done during the process of writing, because I mean, when you're like 2/3 way into your book, you have to go back and change things, or like go back to, okay, what did I say about that? So yeah, definitely need some changes throughout the process. But yeah, there's definitely has to be a lot of editing afterwards, like cut in the fat, and because sometimes you have a lot more than you need, so that needs to be cut for sure. Yeah, so definitely need editing afterwards.
Okay, final question is long form serials or one shot stories? So things that take a really long time to finish, or things that are done in one book?
Um, I, I like both. I mean, it's going to be a series. I plan to write 6, 7 books in the Mavericks series, but after that, I'm going to tap into like other fan fiction that I had on the side that I wrote, that I pulled out, and I'm going to rewrite to make proper books out of. And those are probably going to be like just like one shot deal.
Totally fair. Well, that was all the questions I have for you. Julie, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening to this, please pick up the Montreal Mavericks series, as well as Lone Wolf. And sorry, the second one was called
Broken Ice.
Broken Ice. Gotta pick up both of those. They're very good. I read Lone Wolf in under 24 hours because I couldn't put it down. And as I said, thank you so much, Julie, for being here. Would you like to promote anything while you're here?
Sure. First, thank you so much, Nick, for having me, for the invitation. I mean, I was ecstatic to be here today to do that. So it's my first podcast, actually. So I was very excited about it. So thank you so much for taking me in. And yeah, I mean, please go on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca. My book is there under Julie McGlynn. So the first one is The Lone Wolf. The second one is Broken Ice. They're both available on paperwork, on ebook, and Kindle Unlimited as well. The third one I'm hoping is going to come out this fall. I don't have a title yet. So yeah, stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the books.
Totally fine. And if you're going to read them, I know you will enjoy them, because the first one was fantastic. I can't in good conscience give my recommendation for the second one because I haven't read it yet. So that would be perjuring myself on the stand. But again, thank you so much for being here, and everybody, I will see you next time. Stay magical, everyone.
Thank you so much.